YouTube, all's it going? The Goat House is back with one move each NFL team must make by the NFL trade deadline. All those news and rumors starting to heat up as the trade deadline approaches. Going over every single team in this video. We'll have a lot more trade deadline videos on the way. We usually predict quite a few trades at this time of the year. So really excited. We have news, rumors, predictions on our Twitter as well. Check that out. We have loads of NFL content each week. Score predictions, picks against the spread, straight up picks the other guys, power rankings, rookie rankings, bets. We got you guys. If you haven't seen our channel yet, check it out. You'll not be disappointed. Links pinned in the comments for anything you're looking for. We have a trade deadline candidates tracker down there, so that'll be pretty useful. We have sponsors, Liquid IV GLD Shop, code GOAT for a percentage off. Have the Eagles chain on from the GLD Shop. We have a giveaway. You'll get to choose an NFL team pennant and a chain as well. Links pinned in the comments for anything you're looking for. We're going to go through every single team, starting with the AFC East teams. The Buffalo Bills, the trade deadline move I think they should make is trading for defensive tackle DJ Jones. The Broncos, it sounds like, are having a fire sale, which helps this, be very realistic, a realistic trade candidate here. Maybe they want to get rid of his contract. He hasn't played anywhere near, like the 49ers DJ Jones, or who earned that contract. But nobody's playing well for the Broncos right now. They're giving him a decrease in snaps, so they probably want to get rid of that contract, like I said. So very likely he could be dealt here. And the Bills, not only do the Bills love them some interior defensive linemen, they usually they really stack up on them. They make sure they have depth guys. They usually have good starters as well. But DaQuan Jones, who is playing very, very well for the Buffalo Bills, went down for what likely will be the year. And so if they can contend, the Bills can contend the way they are, but to help them in contention, they need another big-time interior defensive lineman. Like, you'd think the interior pass rush is going to go downhill without DaQuan Jones. And the run stop ability, which is a very good run stuffer. So getting DJ Jones in there, and I think DJ Jones will play a bit better with the Bills. Well-coached defense, good players around him. It's not like the Broncos. It's more like the 49ers. I mean, it's not quite like the 49ers when DJ Jones was there, but it's similar to that, in terms of the talent, how they are coached, similar scheme. So he does have another year on his contract after this year, so I guess that's like where they really have to sit down and think. But I think this would help them, and they should be Super Bowl or bust pretty much every year when you have Josh Allen and Diggs and all these guys are getting Von Miller back. They could use a linebacker to help out because they don't have Matt Milano anymore for the rest of the year, but there's not really there's really not many at all that are going to be available via trade unless there's a surprise one. But DJ Jones would make some sense for them to help them contend. The Dolphins, got them adding a corner. Trade for Jalen Johnson could be a solid move. The Dolphins are a very good team as well, very good roster. They don't have a lot of glaring needs. Do they absolutely have to make a deal at the deadline? No, not really. They're a good team, but the defense has been a little disappointing. But they would like to get Jalen Ramsey back later in the year, during that playoff push or in the playoffs. So that's possible. So maybe that's why they stay away from adding a corner here. But the Bears' corner should be available. They didn't extend him. They couldn't reach agreement on talks. They added multiple young corners throughout the draft the last 2 years. They've been playing a lot more as Johnson's been a little beat up, but nothing long-term with the injury. I think he's a pretty good scheme fit with the Dolphins, where they'll run a little bit of zone and man. I think he'll fit that. You see cover 3, cover 1. He still has upside. He played better when the Bears defense was really good, and the Bears defense has not been good recently, and he hasn't been as good, but he still feels like in terms of talent, their best corner, but they definitely could be shopping him since they're not extending him. I think it's a good fit for the Dolphins. They definitely could use another piece while Jalen Ramsey is out, but when he comes back, it's not going to be 99% snaps Jalen Ramsey, so it's okay to have another starter-worthy guy in here, along with Xavier Howard. And they're a little thin on depth, where they have guys, young guys, but in terms of who they trust out there, you're going to need somebody like this that can play corner, for the next Bills matchup, for games like that. So, expiring deals. So, again, Ramsey and Howard under contracts, long-term, not just this year. So, it'd be good to get a guy in expiring deal, just in case maybe they say we don't want a guy long-term. We don't really want that. So, it would make some sense here. Let him walk for a compensatory pick, perhaps. So I would like that for the Dolphins, depending on the price. Earlier day 3 pick makes some sense there. For the Patriots, trade Juju Smith-Schuster if you can. That's kind of the one move I want them to make because it just hasn't worked out, and he's got a bigger type contract, and It's I don't really love giving up on guys right away, and the quarterback play has been bad, but it's been pretty clear in Bill O'Brien, which I think Bill O'Brien's a long-term solution for them in terms of, and it hasn't looked great, but in terms of their offensive coordinator in that system, but he's getting, less and less snaps. There's guys that aren't supposed to be better or as good as Juju getting more snaps than him now. He just hasn't really been working out, and maybe they got to look where it's like, because with that contract, you think they'd be in the lack of play on offense in general. You think they would be insisting on Juju, playing him, but he's not really getting overall that many snaps, and he's not doing really. He's almost non-existent out there. So I think they would like to dump his contract. There are teams desperate for receivers. Would they want his contract though? But if they get any offers, maybe it's just kind of a reset. Like, move on from him. Let's get that money back, even though we have a lot of money in the future. And we just try to find guys that fit this offense better because we know it didn't work out. So I think the Patriots mainly should be sellers rather than buyers. They already bought J.C. Jackson, which was a smaller deal, obviously. But yeah, so try if you can, try to trade away Juju. We'll see if anybody would take that contract. They could look to trade Bourne, but I would rather keep him compared to the value you're going to get. If you can trade Gesicki, that'd be solid. It's going to be a very, very late pick, maybe a swap of picks. So they could be sellers more so than buyers at the deadline. The Jets, this is where we get interesting because I originally thought the Jets should probably stay away from trading from Kirk Cousins. I've explained that in the past, and there's probably some fans that were in agreement with that. Like, there's really no point, and so they might get mad with this take, but I've kind of talked myself into, I kind of changed my own mind here on this one a little bit. It depends on the price. Now, the Vikings, for them to give up on the year, they could demand a first-round pick. That very well could be the case. I wouldn't do it then if I'm the Jets, just because, not really because of Cousins' talent level. I think it could be worth that, but because it's kind of a rental. Like, you're just giving away a first-round pick or a high pick or a bunch of picks for a guy that you're just going to use for the rest of this year and maybe do well with. Trying to get back in contention. Then you're just going to go back to Rodgers in this year. So that would be the reason that the Jets should not do this. But I think Cousins, multiple reasons here. I think Kirk would be pretty good with the Jets. And you look, a big reason here is the AFC isn't looking as crazy as we thought. Like, we thought, and teams could get back on track. It's early. But we thought the Bengals would be a lot better. We thought the Chargers would be a lot better. I mean, even the Chiefs, the Jets almost had the Chiefs with Zach Wilson. The Chiefs are winning right now, but they don't look all that great. The Bills look great, but they just got extremely beat up on defense, and more injuries are happening by the week for them. So you think they're pretty beatable if you got a good team. The Dolphins look good, but you can move the ball on them if you have an explosive offense. And the Jets have talent. They have talent, so I think just getting a quarterback in there, they can actually make some noise in the AFC, which, the Ravens don't look as good as the Jags are starting to pick it up a little bit. The Browns are beat up at quarterback. The AFC looks a little bit more doable, I guess, than you originally thought. Like, if the Jets had Aaron Rodgers still, it would be great for them right now, but they don't. And Kirk Cousins is used to not having the best offensive lines. He takes some hits. He's a very tough guy. He's very durable. The Jets have talent like the Vikings. And people always rip Kirk Cousins for not making the big plays and the big moments. I think he makes big plays. I'm a diehard Vikings fan. If you're new to the channel, you probably wouldn't know about the Eagles chain. Kind of just repping the different GLD we got. But I think it's more of I've been a Vikings fan for a long time, and my dad has as well. It's been a Vikings thing to not show up in big games like that. I think too much goes into Kirk Cousins, where I think a lot of it is a Vikings thing. I know the Jets haven't been great, but they've been lacking talent. Right now they're not. So trade for Kirk Cousins. Who knows what happens with Rodgers after this year? He could, it doesn't sound like he's going to retire, but you never know. So then you have Cousins, do you extend him, whatever. So if you can get him, say the Vikings lose against the Bears this week, they might be more of sellers than we thought. Then maybe they can get him for a second-round pick. I would not be against it. I think they can turn it around and get back in contention there, with him, because the talent they have, and have that defense. They have that defense as well. So I am not against that unless they're giving up a shit ton of stuff. On to some NFC East teams. Cowboys definitely could use another receiver, which is kind of surprising because they have CeeDee Lamb, they have Gallup, they have Cooks now as well, which they're all pretty good receivers. CeeDee Lamb is more than pretty good, obviously. The last game we saw him play, though, he was struggling to get separation against the Niners. It is the Niners, but they need some other guys out there that get separation to help them, guys that are, trustworthy, durable, so I think Hollywood Brown could be a good option especially having that speed, kind of what you thought you were going to get in Cooks, and Cooks is good still, but can he be full go these days anymore? So I think getting this guy an expiring deal, not being like locked up with a deal for long term, it could make some sense. The Cardinals are liking Hollywood Brown right now, though, so they may not want to trade him, but if they do, they may want a pretty decent draft pick, a round 3 pick, maybe a round 2 you would have to give up, which it does seem like a little much for him when he's been a little inconsistent catching the ball over the past years, and he's on an expiring deal. But it'd be a really good fit, in my opinion. It can really elevate the passing game for the Cowboys, so I thought that made sense. Eagles trade for Jeremy Chin. I actually talked about this like a month ago. I made like a way too early trade candidates video, and Jeremy Chin wasn't being talked about at all as a candidate. Like, I kind of predicted, maybe he wouldn't fit the new Panthers defense. Maybe they wouldn't be using him correctly, and he could be a candidate. Now it's starting to be talked about a little bit more. I even mentioned the Eagles back then in that video. It's starting to be talked about a little bit more here, so I do love it. The Eagles definitely could use a safety. Jeremy Chin is extremely, extremely talented. Like, he can do a bit of everything, but I think that's where the Panthers are going wrong. They kind of want him to do too much of a bit of everything. Like, they want to line him up in the slot, in the box, almost like a linebacker position. But his best moments are in coverage, so I would like for a team to acquire him and just use him at safety. And the Eagles definitely can use an upgrade there. He's not overly expensive. He's probably going to be cheaper in terms of the trade value too, and I think he can be really good. I think he has potential to be a star player, really. And the Eagles move to get a young player like this and get the most out of him. So I love that for multiple reasons. It's a fit and it makes sense. So seeing if the Eagles try to make a move to make themselves more of contenders here, but trying to figure out what Chin could go for is a little tough. Like, he's got so much upside still, but the Panthers really just aren't using him right or using him a whole lot. Like, he's getting limited snaps, so it could be could you get him for like a day 3 pick? It'd be pretty ridiculous. The Giants, I think they should trade Leonard Williams. He's been really, really good for the Giants over the course of his career, since he's got there. But expiring deal and a very, very expensive deal this year. So the Giants, I'm not necessarily saying they should throw in the towel, which it's pretty bad right now and everyone's beat up. I mean, that most likely the season's over, unfortunately. But they can move on from him, clear that money, and then maybe go get multiple signs. Try to find a receiver, some of these young receivers on the block that you could use now and for next year, the year for the future, So it actually can help you make deals now. So I know clearing space isn't really a must if they're not really trying to win now, but it also can help you for the future, even though that clearing that space is right now. But I think just teams need a defensive lineman right now. I think just trying to get something for him before he hits free agency. I think you get something pretty decent for him. Could it be a 4th round pick? And maybe he's worth more than that from his talent level. But expiring deal, a little expensive, but I think it would be huge if they can move on from him. And again, then they can make moves. They can acquire some like a young receiver, young, cheaper offensive lineman, and then even have money left over because you moved on from Williams. So, but the Giants overall should be sellers for the most part. Commanders are tough to figure out what they should do. I thought about a corner. Could they look at Dante Jackson, Jalen Johnson? I don't know, because they've been struggling at corner and they had to bench Forbes last week, but then they're going to put Forbes back in the starting lineup. They're going to insist on him. Could they look for like a slot coverage guy? They need a linebacker. There's just no really good linebackers available unless there's a surprise. Offensive line's been pretty bad. We know Garrett Bowles of the Broncos is a lot of guys of the Broncos could be had. You could trade for these guys. The problem with this one is, do they actually do it? Like, do they do it and then feel good about putting him at right tackle and putting Wiley at guard? That's what they should do, in my opinion. That's what they should do. But will they actually do it? But the offensive line's been looking like one of the worst in football. I say the Giants are the worst in football. The Commanders are in contention for maybe the next worst. And Hall needs protection because he makes some bad decisions when he's under pressure. So maybe getting a guy like this who I think would fit Bieniemy's scheme, the blocking scheme over there, and then you kind of give him a trial, like see if this guy is the guy of the future, and then maybe, a little bit of a trial to see to test your future out a little bit. So I thought it made sense. I'm just not really counting on the Commanders to make any moves. There's nothing that really pops out to me. Like usually when things pop out, they're likely to happen. But they're maybe with the most recent loss was that bad one against the Bears. Maybe they're realizing after that, coming off that, they got to make a move. But we'll see. We'll see how they play this week against the Falcons. Ravens trade for Danielle Hunter. They need a pass rusher. They're limited because of health and because of, I guess, talent. Like their best pass rusher right now off the edge is Jadeveon Clowney. So getting a better player, the Ravens want to be a contender. Right now they don't really feel that way for multiple reasons, but they are a good team. But if they get a big-time pass rusher like this, it could be huge. And they're famous for kind of getting, making trades at the deadline, but getting guys on an expiring deal, and then trying him out. And if he's a monster, then you extend him, or and he is a pretty damn good player, but you could let him walk and get a compensatory pick. He's probably going to cost like a second-round pick, maybe a little bit more. But it just feels like a move the Ravens they have made and they would make, and then they've actually specifically made one with a pass rusher from the Vikings before Yannick Ngakoue in the past, and they let him walk, after that. So it just feels like a Ravens move, and they badly need a pass rusher right now. They could use a receiver looking at that last game, all those guys dropping the ball and the injuries they have, but they already invested a lot in receiver with a first-round pick and a lot of money given out to OBJ. I don't know if they're a team that will invest that much more unless they can find some really cheap guy is a possibility. But could you use another corner as well? They could grab another corner. But Danielle Hunter just feels like a Ravens move, and it would really elevate them. Will the Vikings trade Hunter, though? Will they throw in the towel? But they may view it. They may look at it as we still want to extend Hunter. So maybe they won't trade him unless it's an eye-popping deal. For the Bengals, I would like Zach Ertz for them. Yeah, the problem is he has another year on his contract. It's not extremely cheap, and they do have to. They could make it cheaper. They could work out a deal there, but they don't have to keep him next year. But at the same time, they do have to worry about paying other guys. But I'm more worried about just now. They don't have that Hayden Hurst on the roster, and he wasn't the best tight end in the world, but he's pretty damn good for the Bengals. They don't really have him right now. I think adding a solid pass-catching tight end, a smart one here in Zach Ertz, who's been playing pretty well. He got in the end zone last week, too. It's good to see him get back in the end zone. But I think it can elevate their entire offense. So, and the Cardinals could be sellers here. I think it would make sense. I think it would elevate not just the tight end play, but the entire offense, the entire passing game here can open things up. So I would like the Bengals to look in something like that. A cheaper option could be Mike Gesicki, but you don't really know what you're going to get with something like that. You'd be much better off. You'd be better with Hurts, I would say. For the Browns, a little bit of a bold one. Maybe not as likely to happen as some of these other ones here, but the Giants should be sellers. They struggled to reach a long-term deal with Barkley. The solution was giving a one-year deal. Deep down, Daboll wants to be a pass-first offense and a heavy pass attack, but they got to worry about they got to build pretty much a whole offensive line minus one or two guys, and they got to build a whole receiver unit, and to do that. And, so I don't know if paying Barkley and extending him long-term is really part of the solution there. So they should be looking maybe to sell if they can get a good pick. The Browns, you could say, well, they have Nick Chubb. Even though he's injured, they have Nick Chubb. Well, yeah, Barkley on a one-year deal. This offense, this is a really good team if Deshaun Watson's out there. It's a really good team, but this offense needs a big-time running back, and Barkley is a big-time running back running the ball and catching the ball. So they could use him out there to contend, which they want to be a contender. And then his deal expires. They let him go. They get Nick Chubb back. They get a compensatory pick for Barkley. Or if Barkley's just outstanding and they're worried about Nick Chubb's long-term injury, maybe they move on from him. I don't think that'll happen, but there's multiple reasons why it's okay to trade for a running back like this. And they do value the running backs a lot, so they might be looking more into this than people realize here, because they have okay running backs right now. They have a long list of them, actually. So there's no point to go and getting, another one of those running backs. There's just really no point. It's go big or go home if you're going to do it. Steelers are another team that could target a guy like Jalen Johnson, the Bears corner. I think it's a really good fit. They're mixing more zone in this year. Johnson is familiar with zone and man, and their cornerback play hasn't been great. Joey Porter Jr.'s looked okay here and there. He's not getting crazy amount of snaps. He's still just kind of an upside guy. Patrick Peterson's very much declining. They don't have a whole lot, Levi Wallace is solid. They don't have a whole long list of solid depth, but just getting better at that position. I think a good scheme fit as well for that defense, Jalen Johnson, which the Bears could be looking to sell because they have one win, and Johnson's on an expiring deal. They have young corners they've drafted that are playing over him right now. I think definitely think he could be dealt. On to the NFC North teams, and yes, I'll put trade Kirk Cousins on here for the Vikings because they have one win right now. They're supposed to be a lot better than this, and they could. The schedule gets easier after the Niners game coming up, I'd say. They could go on a bit of a win streak, but what are they going to, what's the maximum they're going to win? Maybe 9 is the very maximum they're going to win. And if they somehow sneak in the playoffs, which I think is unlikely, you're not going to win a Super Bowl. You have to realize there's such a thing as being too confident, so you don't want to be too confident here. I think if they keep Cousins, I don't know if they'll be too confident. I think it'll be because they still think they want to keep him around, or maybe he won't waive his no trade clause, or maybe they want to extend him long term. They're still not sure about it. But right now, I think it doesn't feel like they want to keep him around long term. They didn't really work on an extension. They got to pay other guys, and they really want to get a rookie quarterback on a rookie quarterback deal with, or if they're going to get a veteran, be trade for Kyler Murray in the offseason. A little bold, but it's not the time to talk about that. But I think they knew before going into the season they're going to move on from him. Basically, is what I'm getting at. So, and they'll get for sure they'll get a future 3rd round compensatory pick for him if they lose him this offseason. Next offseason, not this one upcoming one, they'll get a 3rd round compensatory pick because it's quarterback. He'll get a pretty big deal. They will get that, but so they have to trade for something more than that right now. And I think a team like the Jets could trade a 2nd rounder, maybe a little bit more, but they may demand a 1st rounder. Wouldn't really blame them for that, giving up on the year. But get something more, than the compensatory pick. Get something now for him because you don't want this to be a rebuild. The Vikings are too talented to be a rebuild. You want to turn it around quick. You want picks right now. And who knows, if they trade him to the Jets probably want to go at Rodgers next year. Cousins will be a free agent. If you decide you don't like where you're sitting in the draft or you don't like your options, let's bring back Kirk Cousins, So I think it makes sense. If a team is interested, I think you pull the trigger there. In terms of Danielle Hunter, I think you may want to keep him around, so maybe don't trade him. But it's been a hassle dealing with him and his contract every single year too. So maybe they're just kind of giving up on that. But Davenport's only a 1-year deal. You probably want to keep Hunter around. He's a pretty good pass rusher, so I don't really blame them. So we will see there. But if they have an opportunity to trade Cousins for a decent pick, better than a 3rd round pick, I'd say you do it. And we just talk about a big time pass rusher and Danielle Hunter. Here's another one, Brian Burns, that I think, going into the year, it was the Panthers, we don't want to deal him. We've been offered everything under the sun for Brian Burns. We don't want to deal him. But the Panthers are the worst team in football right now. They can't get anything going. It's looking like a full rebuild. It's our best player on offense is Adam Thielen, who looks really good right now, but he's a guy that's not going to be around forever. So that pretty much sums it up. We have a quarterback that has a lot of potential. We want to get him some weapons. We want to get him a full group of weapons for the future because all the other guys really, Mingo's going to be a part of it, but he's not the super flashy receiver. He's kind of a do-it-all receiver. They could use a running back. Sanders doesn't look great. They can use more offensive linemen. Defensively, they need to patch things up pretty much everywhere. So they are sellers for a reason. I'm not saying they're for sure going to sell Brian Burns, but it is more likely. But they will not give him away. They're going to need they're going to need a 1st round pick. If it's not a pretty good 1st round pick, they're going to need more. But pass rushers are so valuable, and Brian Burns is a hell of a pass rusher. So there's teams that I think will trade for him, obviously, and I think the Panthers are more open to doing it. Not that they'll for sure do it, but I like the Lions for him. I don't know. Maybe they'll rely on development, which has been great for them because they've drafted well. Development has been the progress. Some of these guys are up-and-comers. They've been great. But right now, they're ahead of schedule at this point. They're a very good team, and it's a little more wide open this year, easier to win at all this year, I think, than I thought it was going to be going into this year. The Lions are legit NFC contender right now. If you go get another pass rusher to pair with Aiden Hutchinson, get a guy that's better than him and Brian Burns, it's going to be downright scary, in Detroit. And I know before the year I thought the Lions should do something like this, and I was saying that, and fans were coming at me no, we got Houston, we got this guy, we got that guy. not just Hutchinson. And I know you got guys that can play in Houston's hurt, by the way, but enough just, now that everyone's developed and everyone looks good, go finish it off. Go get a big-time player that could be around long-term. The only downside about this is you have to trade some valuable picks, and they like having their valuable picks, using those. And, trading in that first round could be tough, but the Lions would be damn good with this and be much more of a contender. So I would like that. The Packers, I was actually going to have them as buyers, but I changed it into the sellers here. And Preston Smith's a good pass rusher. He's been good for him. I think he had a sack or two last game. But he's still got multiple years on his deal. The Packers, it just feels like they're in rebuild mode still. Like their best player is Aaron Jones, who's not going to be around forever. But they're on offense, I should say. But their best players on offense, besides that, the healthier guys are just young guys like Jordan Love. All these receivers, Watson, Dobbs, Reed looks good. Musgrave at tight end. They need more offensive linemen. They need more big-time players to make, get this back in track. Who knows? They might need a quarterback. So being able to get picks and then clear some space, too, because you want to be able to have more space in the future to work with. So just getting rid of his contract, even though he's a good player for them, I think would actually be huge, because by the time they're ready to actually contend for a Super Bowl, is Preston Smith going to be worth anything? No. And then this route, you get, Van Ness, guys like that, more reps in there as well. So I think it's a win there. So I don't think the Packers are winning anything major right now. So I think being sellers, makes more sense. On the Bears, we talked about Jalen Johnson a couple times already. I think teams it would make sense for them to target him. And here's one for the Bears. Like, I think they should definitely be sellers. The front office still definitely believes they're a work in progress. They have 2 first-round picks this upcoming year for a reason. They drafted pretty well at corner. They have some good young guys, specifically from this past draft, that are playing over Johnson right now. I know because Johnson's a little beat up, but they didn't extend him for a reason. They're probably not going to extend him this offseason. Trade him now while teams are desperate for a corner. And, because what would you get compensatory pick-wise? Not this year, but the next year you'd probably get a 5th-round pick. The Bears might be buyers in free agency again, so that kind of knocks down what you lose. So maybe they don't even get that. So trading him and getting a pick now, trading him for like a 4th-round pick. Could they even get a 3rd? That'd be a big win for the Bears, but a 4th-round pick I think would be good as well. 5th round wouldn't be god-awful at all, but I think it would make some sense, just to move on from him now, because there's really no other people on their team. I think everyone else on their team is like, it's worth keeping him around for now or long term. You're talking about Mooney. I'd rather keep around Mooney, but you wish him and Fields would develop a little bit more of a connection. But trading Johnson I think would be pretty big for them. On to the AFC South, the Jags. The Jags could use another pass rusher. They are missing Arden Key, but they don't really need a starter necessarily, because Josh Allen and Trayvon Walker are very solid and they're getting better, of course. But they with Arden Key, they would use all 3 at the same time, but then he was also like a glorified rotation guy. So they can use a big-time rotation guy, because if they go out and get a big-time pass rusher, like starting pass rusher, then someone's getting less snaps. Is it your current best pass rusher in Josh Allen, or is it your first overall pick from last year who needs reps to get better in Trayvon Walker? So I would prefer them just getting a rotation guy. And Derek Barnett makes some sense there. Good experience. I think a solid rotation option compared to the other ones that are probably just starters. Going to be on the cheaper side. He's played under Doug Peterson. Not that Doug Peterson was a defensive guy, but that's kind of a bonus, I thought, as well. And I think he could fit the scheme, too. So I thought that made some sense for the Jags. I kind of been saying that one. The Titans, I thought I was going to have them as a seller. I was going to put the obvious one is just if you can trade Ryan Tannehill, that would be great. Shed that money. And to me, they really have to try Will Levis or Malik Willis, but I prefer Will Levis this year, because they need to know because they got a great quarterback class coming up. They need to know if he's going to be the guy or not. I would love to see Levis play too, because the quarterback class looks like, right, just based on this year, not the future, looks like Stroud's great. And then the Titans really wanted Stroud too. They wanted to trade up for him. So it was unfortunate the Texans got them for the Titans' sake. But everyone else is like, Will Levis realistically could be the second best quarterback. We don't even know, So I'd like to see him play. So trading Tannehill could help that, but I really don't think anyone's going to take Tannehill. I just really don't think so. So, trading for Renfro, who could be had. The Raiders trade guys for cheaper than their value is all the time. And he's just not playing a whole lot for them, get some snaps. And Myers is looking fantastic from the slot. Renfrow is a slot receiver. The Titans could definitely use a guy like Renfrow. I think he'd be very productive in their system. DeAndre Hopkins looks great. He's healthy right now, knock on wood. He looked great last game, even though they couldn't score touchdowns against the Colts. Treylon Burks has been disappointing, mainly because of his health. We know he's a playmaker. You wish he was more of a playmaker, I guess, when he is on the field, but he is a playmaker. But those are two outside receivers. Hopkins is an X. Burks is more of a Z, kind of a gadget guy. Their slot receiver is Akine. And he's been there for a bit. He's kind of reliable, but it's like, go get better. Go get better at the slot position. So go get a guy like Renfrow. But this was tricky because I also thought about outside receivers, like a guy like Courtland Sutton, because you have Hopkins and you have Burks. Burks is currently injured. Is Hopkins going to be out there every single week? You might need but Chris Moore actually looks decent. So I think Renfrow would be pretty good for them. And they are getting Phillips back, but I just go get better. They'll go get better there. So, but they could. I thought about Garrett Bowles. They could be looking to buy offensive linemen as well. Nicholas Petit-Frere coming back from suspension. He's already back, but does he get back in the mix? We'll see. The Texans, Jerry Jeudy. I'm not a big Jerry Jeudy guy. And a lot of fans, he's probably the most talked about guy right now amongst fans and maybe even media. Everyone wants their team to get Jerry Jeudy. I'm like, all right, slow down a little bit. Depends on the price. Anything more than a fourth rounder, I think, is too much. If it's a later third, okay. So I think people are getting a little carried away with Jeudy, but I do actually like him a lot for the Texans. I think that's one team I definitely think should look into it. It's a guy that can play outside and in the slot. He's done most of his work from the slot, but can play both. Nico Collins is our outside X receiver. All the other guys are they can play outside and the slot. So getting another one of those guys in the mix, I think, makes a lot of sense. Because when you have one guy inside, one guy out, you kind of flip them around. Woods is mainly just a slot guy, but they can use another guy that gets separation, for CJ Stroud. I think he would kind of revive his career in that offense with Stroud. So I would like that. Just beware with overpaying for Jerry Jeudy. That's kind of the only scary part. And like I said, everyone is all over Jeudy, trade for Jeudy. I only have two teams in this video that I think should consider it, and they are both in the AFC South. They are both back-to-back. It's the Colts. I'm a little more hesitant with the Colts, though, than the Texans. I would like them much better on the Texans. The Colts, I'd be a little cautious. Definitely do not overpay. Anything more than 4 is too much. I've heard the Colts already looked into this, so it is kind of realistic in the same way. I thought about them adding another pass rusher like Carl Lawson. I think it's a really good fit in Gus Bradley's scheme. Thought about that, but they have Michael Pittman as an X receiver. Their Y slot receiver is Josh Downs, who's just strictly a slot receiver and has been looking pretty good. And the other receiver is Alec Pierce, who I think has been overrated, even as a prospect. Makes some crazy grabs here and there, I suppose, but he's been very underwhelming. So getting a guy like Jeudy that can play outside, inside, because remember, Downs is only an inside guy, so you want to get a little less predictable having Jeudy out there, with Downs, or when Downs is off the field, you have Jeudy in the slot, you have Alec Pierce outside, so I thought, you pretty much always have Pittman out, outside in the game. I should say. That was confusing. But so I think it makes sense as a fit and being able to open things up more for the offense. And he can be a guy that can extend long term, and I think could fit well with Anthony Richardson long term as long as he's healthy. So it makes sense. It's just do not overpay. I do not like a third round pick for the Colts. I would rather keep your third round pick for Jerry Jeudy. The Falcons, we talked about Danielle Hunter a little bit. The Vikings could be sellers. There's a big-time pass rusher available here. The Falcons' defense is much, much improved. They've done a really good job, but they still aren't getting consistent sacks. They get pressure, especially from the interior. The edge guys need to help him out a bit. And Bud Dupree's actually good. He's been a good player. He's always been a good player. He just doesn't stay healthy. And he's healthy right now, but you got to be careful with that. They're going to need another pass rusher as it is, and they might need one even more. So just go getting a guy that in his career has done what? He's got to the quarterback. He's gotten sacks, and pair him with a good defense, an improved secondary, improved interior defensive line around Grady Jarrett. I think it'd be huge for the Atlanta Falcons, and it's a guy that can extend long-term as well. So this makes a lot of sense to me. This would be a massive upgrade for them and really boost that defense even more, and it's looked really good. Saints, I don't really have an obvious one for the Saints. There's really nobody I think they should definitely sell. Do they have a massive need somewhere? Like, they're good at receiver. The quarterback plays got to be a little bit better to show that they're very good at receiver. They're good at running back as long as they have Kamara and Jamal Williams back. Offensive line, I thought about, like, really the only one available right now feels like Garrett Bowles, but they would rather obviously Ramczyk, but left tackle, they'd rather just keep going with Penning probably. Defensively, like, they have one of the best secondaries in all of football. They're fine with their linebacker unit. Defensive line. Interior, they don't have anybody that's like a wow big-time player, but they got a bunch of decent pieces that they're pretty good in the rotation, and Brian Bruzzi's going to continue to get better. Edge, I mean, they have Cam Jordan. Randerson's looking good. They got guys rotating in. They could be a little more consistent in terms of getting sacks, so they could use another guy in there. I don't think they should be huge spenders in terms of how much money they're spending on these guys. On top of the pick, I should say. Carl Lawson could be a good option in the rotation for them. And who knows, could end up starting, and then maybe they extend him long-term on a cheaper deal since he's been a little underwhelming, but he still has upside. So I didn't really love any for the Saints, to be honest, but I think that would be pretty good. If they look at the interior, I'm fine with that as well. They're always obsessed with adding corners, but I love that secondary so much. Like, I don't know if they really need one. They usually tend to look at the receiver market as well. I think they've been linked to Darius Slayton for quite a while, it feels like. They like those speedy guys. Like, if he's available, maybe cheap. They don't really need him, though, so I don't know. Panthers should be sellers. And I almost, since they should be sellers, I almost want to put them trading away a guy on here. But I mean, they could trade away, multiple guys. But I don't know if it's really a must. We know they want to add a big-time receiver, as big-time receiver as they can get. And they're looking, and specifically, I think they can use an outside receiver. And Courtland Sutton is good. We saw a ridiculous touchdown catch against the Chiefs in that Thursday night game. Like, he's capable of that. I loved him as a prospect at SMU, and I still trust my judgment on all these players. They usually work out, and he was really good right away. And now there's just been a lack of quarterback play, and he's had some little injuries along the way, but he's their best receiver in Denver. He's a good player. And I know Bryce Young hasn't been all that great so far, but he's going to get there. And mainly his negatives have been like him dealing with pressure and his movement in the pocket and getting the ball out quicker. He can throw the ball. He can get the ball downfield. He's going to get better at that as well. So it's not like a same issue as Russell Wilson's problem right now. So having a solid physical outside receiver, who I still think could be a monster. I still think he has a lot of upside. He's shown it. I think it'd be good for the Panthers and Bryce Young. And people talk about Judy, and Judy could work. He plays outside and inside, but I like Sutton. I think Sutton's better. I think it's more of what they need to pair with Adam Thielen. Adam Thielen leads the league in slot snaps, and he's looking good doing it, like playing from there. So you get a true physical outside receiver. I think it makes sense, and he won't be that expensive. He's under contract for a few more years. I don't think it's a bad deal, like if he plays to where I think he can play to, and it's good having a guy under contract because right now they're kind of scrambling for a receiver. Like, so having a guy under contract, you don't need to be scrambling for one. You can add another one here and there because they like Mingo for the future as well. And he's another, that's like, he's not a similar play style as Judy, but they both are like inside, outside guys. You move around a bit. They have that. They have the slot receiver in Thielen. Go get that outside receiver for Bryce Young that can make contested catches. So I like Sutton for them a lot. If they can get him for a 4th round pick, I am good with that. I would love that move, even though they may look like more of sellers because of the worst team in football. They can be both. Sell guys, buy a receiver. Bucks, a little bit of the bold one, had this for the Browns as well. I would love Saquon Barkley on the Bucks. Man, I would love him on the Bucks. The Giants should be sellers. They need to focus on offense line and receiver. They want to be a pass-first offense. They don't want to extend Barkley. Maybe they will eventually, but I don't think so. Sell him now. Get something really good for him now. The Buccaneers have been good. They've been impressive. Maybe one of the more surprisingly impressive teams in football. They got playmaking defense. They got a good defense. They're well coached on defense. Offensively, they haven't been super explosive, but they're good. Like Baker's making plays. He's better than expected. He gets the ball downfield to his guys like Mike Evans. But the running game's been a little inconsistent. So you add Barkley in there, who's a dynamic runner, but he catches the ball very well. I just picture him with Baker Mayfield, Baker escaping the pressure, and Barkley's good at kind of leaking out and getting a little bit downfield and making plays after. Like, I picture that going very well together. It's just like a much, much better version of Rachaad White, who still has upside, and he's not terrible, but you just get so much better, and you can pay him long term, because I think they'll end up having Baker as the guy, like, long term. And they'll keep an eye out for, depending on where they pick in the draft, if a quarterback slips to them or if they have an opportunity to go up and get one for the future quarterback, they may do it. But I got a feeling, based on the way things are going, that Baker, they're gonna give him a deal probably. And it's gonna be a deal where it's not like, yeah, he's for sure the quarterback forever or for a long time, but he's the guy right now. So go getting a guy that really fits that. And then, like, it's crazy that Baker's playing as well as he is right now with, like, not the best offense line and not the biggest run game to open up the pass game. Like, actually, I know Mike Evans is the best player on that offense, but Baker is the one creating and opening things up for that offense with his legs and just making plays. So giving him a little bit more to work with here to open up things for him, I think would be huge. I just like the fit of, like, if Baker was on the Giants right now, like, with Barkley, I think they'd be a lot better, like, than they are right now. So just because of his style of play. So I just like that fit a lot. If they somehow can make that happen, it'd be pretty cool. Raiders, they should definitely trade Hunter Renfrow. Enough with it. Trade him, shed the rest of his contract. He's a good player that's kind of sitting around for them right now because they got really good receivers. Myers looks fantastic, better than he was on the Patriots. And obviously they have Adams and the other pieces, but get something for him now because the value's going down day by day. There's no use to keeping a pretty decent player just, on the bench like they are. I know he plays a little tiny bit, but just move on from him. That would make a lot of sense. The Broncos, out of all the guys they should trade, I think the biggest one is DJ Jones. I don't think they should trade Patrick Surtain. I think that's a bunch of BS talk. I don't think they should trade Justin Simmons either, but I guess there's some sort of chance. I'm not expecting it. You could put Sutton on here because he has a lengthier deal and has shed that money. You could put Judy because it just hasn't worked out. But Sutton's their best receiver, one. But DJ Jones hasn't played like the contract they gave him was based on how he played with the 49ers. He has not been the 49ers, DJ Jones, not even close. And now with this Vance Joseph defense, he's playing less and less. They're playing him less and less. The Vance Joseph defense is brutal. So by the time they get back on track, DJ Jones is probably going to be out of his contract, and is he even a fit for their defense? So there's just so many questions, and he still has multiple years on his deal. But if you can shed that contract, because he's not really working for you. Like and there's teams that are desperate for interior defensive linemen. He's a pretty good one. He hasn't looked like it on the Broncos, but he's a pretty good one. So if you can shed that contract and get a pretty decent day 3 pick, that is massive. He's not the most talked about one, but is the biggest one for the Broncos to do it for those reasons, because the contract, he's not working. He's probably not going to be working anytime soon for them. Their focus will probably be on getting a quarterback, getting receivers. That'll probably be where their focus is at mainly. So, moving on from him could make some sense. We talked about Danielle Hunter a little bit. He is a big-time candidate here, possibly if the Vikings are sellers. So there's teams that definitely should be interested. He's on an expiring deal, which helps out a lot of teams. The Vikings could pay a little bit of the contract as well, which can make him a little cheaper, which probably be necessary, which probably be needed for the Chiefs. But the Chiefs really need another wide receiver because the receiver play has not been great. The problem is the ones that are available are in the division. And then who knows? One of those, could the Broncos trade them one of their guys? Like, you can't rule it out. I'm just not counting on it. So something else they need is a pass rusher, in my opinion. Like to be, back to being the top contender in the AFC. I think they need another receiver. Rashee Rice is getting a lot better, though. Like, I think he's going to eventually take over as the receiver one. But they need a receiver, and they need to be a little bit more consistent in terms of their pass rush off the edge. So getting Danielle Hunter, they would be monstrous for them. Like, they would have that much better of a pass rush. And him with Chris Jones, they would be much more of a contender than they are right now, and they already are one. So I'd like that for the Chiefs there if they can make it work financially. Might need the Vikings' help. Chargers, Dante Jackson. The Panthers could be sellers. They have a corner there that could be had. He has another year under his contract, and I actually like that for the Chargers. He definitely fits, in my opinion, perfectly, like scheme-wise, like coverage concept-wise. Brandon Staley is heavy man coverage, but cover 3 as well. What has Dante Jackson run in his career with the Carolina Panthers? A very good mixture of cover 3 and man coverage. This year, they want to run more cover 4 with the coordinator change over there. And that hasn't really worked out too well, but it hasn't worked out for anybody on the Panthers. So Chargers running mainly cover 1 and mixing some cover 3 in there makes it make sense for Dante Jackson. They traded J.C. Jackson. Obviously that didn't work out. He's kind of like a fits Bill Belichick's defense over there, one of those Patriots guys. And they got 2 starters right now, but they definitely can use another body. It's definitely a need in there. Definitely can use another guy, and I do think is a pretty good fit. And he is under contract next year, and it's not overly expensive. And I think getting another guy under contract so you don't have to worry about it, I think makes it make more sense, for the Chargers. So I like that fit a lot. For Seattle, I'm going to go DJ Jones. We talked about him a little bit. We talked about the Broncos should sell him. The Bills could buy him. I think the Seahawks could buy him. They have some spending money here. And you may say defensive tackle, like we have Jaron Reed, who's playing pretty well. Then we have Draymond Jones as our interior, the 3-4 defensive end in there. And yeah, they got pretty good pieces up there, but I think they can use one more piece. People talk about them being buyers, edge rushers. They don't have the best edge rush group in the world, but they have a long list of guys that are getting better and they can play. The secondary is only going to get better once Adams is back in there and the corners are developing day by day. So Jaron Reed's playing well. He's getting doubled an insane amount. Draymond Jones probably got to play a little bit better. But getting another interior guy, like a defense tackle that can pair with those guys, that can play nose tackle, I think can really elevate those guys, but the defense in general. I think it can elevate Reed and Draymond Jones and the edge rushers in terms of getting pressure. I think DJ Jones himself helps stop the run. So I think that makes sense for them. Could they look at offensive line because they're beat up there? Possibility. Could they look at edge rusher? Maybe. I think this made a lot more sense. Rams, Brian Burns for them. They're looking for that next great pass rusher for them. It's been Aaron Donald. They still have Aaron Donald, but maybe they add a big-time guy off the edge, like the Von Miller type guy, but a younger one that has a lot of upside. They were rumored to be in on Brian Burns in the past, so they could get back in the mix. Their best edge rusher is a rookie from Tennessee, a mid-round rookie from Tennessee, with Byron Young's look pretty decent, but they need another guy in the mix, and the Rams are better than expected. They're going to be able to contend for the playoffs much better than expected. They're much more of a contender than everyone thought. So maybe that they thought. So go out and get a big-time player to help you. So I thought about corner, safety, offensive line for them, but this one made a lot of sense. Would they be willing to give up a first-round pick, though? They're not afraid to trade those picks. F those picks. That could still be the motto over there. So, and they were in on Brian Burns in the past, so it could make some sense. Cardinals, I think they could be sellers, obviously, because they've been sellers, and they're still kind of in a rebuild. I think the biggest one is trade Zach Ertz, and he's been useful to them. He's been pretty good, so maybe they don't, but he's got another year under his contract next year. Like to be able to shed that space, not that they're desperate for money, but they're a rebuild team. Ertz should be a part of a rebuild team, and to be able to shed more money and be able to get a pick out of it now, I think could be big, and then give Trey McBride more of an opportunity as well to see what he got. See if you need another tight end, in the next year's draft when you have a load of picks, So I think it makes a lot of sense, and there's some teams that could be buyers, Bengals, Cowboys, teams like that. So. That is bigger. I would prefer them to hang on to Hollywood Brown and maybe extend him depending on the deal. I don't want to overpay him, but Budda Baker's an interesting one as well. But this is the one that if you had to do one, I think this is the one here. And 49ers for last. I like Hunter Renfrow for the 49ers. The 49ers are the biggest contender there is right now. So how do they go out and become more contenders? Well, they already started on that. They traded for Randy Gregory, because they're pretty good at defensive end, but they weren't afraid to get better. Let's get a veteran piece. Let's just do it. Let's get another option out there. Let's get even better. I love that. What else do they need? Maybe some depth at offensive line in case they get injured. It's very rare right now to find. They're pretty much good everywhere. But I look at receiver. Brandon Ayuk is a monster. He's getting better and better. He's fantastic for them, mainly as an outside receiver. Deebo Samuel, most of the snaps come outside or even in the backfield, that gadget outside receiver who does have durability concerns. After that, Juwan Jennings is actually pretty clutch. He's pretty solid here and there. He's a guy that can play inside or out. Obviously not the quickest guy. And they have Ronnie Bell now too. But, because of durability and because of like the lack of like a dominant, like quick separating slot receiver, that is where I look at Hunter Renfrow, who could be had for pretty cheap right now. You don't even have to play him like all that time. Like, and they like to use 2 receivers at once a lot. That's fine. Ayuk and Debo. Renfro's riding the bench right now anyways. He's going to play more even if he's a backup for the 49ers. I think he'd fit really well with that style of offense too. He's going to get open, catch the ball. But again, like I said, Ayuk and Debo is going to be out there for the majority of the time. They don't like using 3 receivers at once, an insane amount. But there's a little bit of durability issues in there with a guy like Debo Samuel. So is Renfrow a Debo replacement? No, but you have another body out there. That I think like Ronnie Bell would probably fill in for like Debo's role, but you have another body out there that can get open and kind of keep this offense fresh if you ever need it to. Right now it's very fresh. So I thought that made some sense. They're viewing themselves as Super Bowl or bust team as they should. Like it's all in right now. So why not make a move like this? But that wraps it up. One move for every NFL team. Obviously, teams can make multiple moves. There's probably other options for other teams. We can talk about it with you guys on Twitter or in the comments. Always love those conversations. We'll have more trade deadline videos like predictions, landing spots, scenarios. As the trade deadline approaches, we have our weekly coverage as well. So join us, like, subscribe to notifications on. We much appreciate. Follow us on Twitter. That is very important. There's a link pinned in the comments for like a trade deadline tracker type thing. It's a spreadsheet. It'll be pretty useful too. So check out those links pinned in the comments. It's going to do it. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.